You're listening to What's Your Signal, where we deep dive into how real businesses use next-generation networking technologies to level up their productivity, innovation, and so much more. Here to help unravel today's topic is me, Taylor Walker, alongside my co-host, Mauricio Stefan. Hey, Mauricio.
Hi, Taylor. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, did you vote in November?
I did, though. Funny story, because it is an off year. I was not sure, it's a non-presidential year, and I wasn't sure in my district what I'd be voting for. So I went, and the only thing that I had to vote for was fire commissioner.
Well, I hope that your candidate was elected because you put a lot of thought into it, clearly.
Well, it was the only thing that I had to research and learn about, so...
Well, all candidate talk aside, how was the process?
It was okay. We in my district where I live, they use electronic poll books, and so that made checking in a little easier. Also, just so happened that this election was right after my daughter's 18th birthday, so we took her to get registered and vote for the first time, and so the process for that was a lot easier with the systems that they were using.
Instead of like the chisel that you used when you registered to vote?
Yeah, back when I registered, you had to get out the stone and carve your name in there.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I do feel like...
wants vote.
I do feel like voting has become progressively easier. I was in and out in under 10 minutes, and something I've noticed the last couple times I voted is that the poll volunteers are definitely incorporating more technology in the process. It's come such a long way. And I've seen a lot of stories, too, about precincts all over the country that are using iPads to check voters in before they cast their ballots, and polling assistants can do digital lookups instead of sorting through paper records, which I'm sure was such a pain. And as a result, it seems like we're saving a lot of time when we vote. The lines are shorter. I'm sure the records are a lot more accurate.
Yeah, I remember, no longer having to prick your finger and, sign your name in blood in order to do it. No, but I do remember... when I first started voting, it was the big book of, they had to find your name in the book and you had to validate everything was correct and sign your name. And now it's a whole lot easier. You just give them your driver's license, scan it, and all the information is there. Even when my daughter registered to vote, all she had to do was give them her driver's license. They scanned her driver's license, pulled all of her address information, made registering a whole lot easier as opposed to having, the old school filling out the forms that people are have to transcribe, which is error prone, and then if I remember my sister, they misspelled her first name, and it took years to get that corrected to ensure that her vote counted.
Oh, that would be such a headache. So today we're talking about Philadelphia's yes vote for the use of wireless networking in elections. And here to help us understand what that means is City Commissioner and Chairwoman of the Philadelphia County Board of Elections, Lisa Deeley, and the City Commissioner's Office IT Director, Jeff Venziale. Okay. So Lisa, Jeff, we're here to chat about how wireless connectivity has made life easier for Philadelphia County elections. But let's first go back a bit. Lisa, I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about what the challenges were in the polling centers that were faced on Election Day in the past.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. We had, some challenges in Philadelphia. We stand up 1,703 precincts on Election Day. And some of those precincts are housed, for example, in a school gymnasium that may have 6 or 7 different precincts in the gymnasium. So when you come in to vote, you might find yourself in the wrong line. And that creates a bottleneck at that particular precinct because you're in the wrong line, so they can't find your name in the registration book. And then you're frustrated because you've waited in this line needlessly because now you got to go find the other line. And then the poll worker is frustrated because they have to figure out, because they want to be helpful, right? They need to find out where it is you're supposed to be. In the past, we would manage that, as best we could. We'd have to, the poll worker would call the office or use, maybe their cell phone to try and go online to find another polling place location, or now with the electronic poll books that we use and the technology that we use now, we can let that voter know that they're in the wrong line, and we can tell them immediately where they're supposed to be. So that is a huge difference for us when it comes to problems. And just as far as even the voters that don't encounter any problems, this technology makes that line move faster. It is, the poll book is much easier to find a person's name than paging through paper poll books. The interface for the voter to just sign it really creates, it's remarkable. There's no, the pen doesn't work or they drop the pen. They can simply use their finger if they so choose. So it really has streamlined the in-person voter experience, and it has also alleviated a lot of stress on our poll workers.
Did you all find before you implemented some of the wireless technology solutions, did you find that those long lines or the stress on the poll workers, did that impact like your ability to get volunteers or people coming out at all? It has a multi-prong impact, right? As I said, so it impacts the voter who's experiencing it. It impacts the poll worker. It impacts the people that are in line behind that voter if there is an issue, right? And then their experience, that voter's experience that they take out of that polling location, they then share with other people. And that just creates a snowball effect of people that think it's a big hassle to go vote in person, right? So that's really what you don't want. You're trying to let people have a good experience from beginning to end so that when they leave and they say to their spouse or their partner when they get home, how was voting? If you go home and you say, oh, it was a pain in the neck, you wouldn't believe it. I had to stand in line. They didn't know where to send me. Then they sent me to this line. I got in that line. It was the wrong line. The person's going to be like, well, I'm not even going to bother. Like, I'm not up for that. Right. But if somebody comes home and they say, you know what, it was a breeze, you should go do it. It was 1, 2, 3, easy peasy. Right. That person's more inclined to go and do it. So, it's for us, it's all about the experience being a positive one, and that positive experience being duplicated voter after voter after voter, because the more positive the experience, the greater level of participation that we'll see. So then you were having these experiences at polling stations and started to look at some other solutions that was not pen and paper, essentially. So Jeff, maybe you can weigh in on what prompted you to start looking at a wireless router solution.
So the main thing that we were looking for when we went with a wireless solution was reliability. I mean, we need to know that these things are going to work every day, all day, and throughout the day. The thing about voting is it's a specific period of time in a day. So for that specific period of time, it has to be rock solid. It has to work 100% of the time. It can't be down at all. And so that was the very first thing we were looking for, was reliability. So we reached out to other places. We reached out to other vendors, and we did a lot of testing before we actually chose one.
Jeff, could you talk a little bit more about some of the criteria that you use there, right? You mentioned that uptime being paramount over everything, right? Because, election day is, well, depending on your municipality, once a year, twice a year. I know in my municipality, it seems like it's like 4 times a year, depending on school bonds and different races and stuff like that. But, it is a finite amount of time, right? Because, November, whatever it is, between 8 and 8, that's it, especially like presidential years and congressional races and those kind of things. So, sorry, I'm being long-winded, but to get to the question. So what are those kind of other types of criteria? And maybe you can describe kind of those things, like, did you look at, router redundancy or link, aggregation or any of those other things? Or is it just strictly based on the uptime that the company advertised as far as the solutions you were looking at?
So one of the things that we were big on was SIM redundancy. So having the carriers redundant because both AT&T and Verizon are major carriers in our area. Um, because geographically we're spread out throughout the entire city of Philadelphia, you might have one carrier that's better than another carrier in any respective area in the city. So it was important to be able to have the ability to use both of those carriers at any given time. So the redundancy and also reliability was pretty important in why we chose to move with Cradlepoint.
I would also say another big selling point was the ease of use, right? So our poll workers vary in ages from, you know, 18 to 87, right? So you want to have a piece of equipment that everybody can feel comfortable using that's easy. And, you know, this equipment really fit that bill. It is, you know, it's very intuitive and it was simple enough for people to be able to use it.
Along those lines, you know, we talked a little bit about the hardware and the reliability there. Were there other parts of the solution that made this easier as far as understanding what the best connectivity was going to be in a location?
So the NetCloud was what really helped us with making this selection. The fact that we have 850 of these devices, trying to manage 850 devices one at a time would have been a nightmare. NetCloud made it very, very easy to manage and maintain. We were able to build groups in NetCloud that were kind of like prescriptions, right? So if we had this issue, that Cradlepoint was moved into that group. If we had this issue, we would move it into that group. So we had different groups that were kind of like recipes or prescriptions for issues that we had in each one of these polling locations. And we would just drag and drop devices into those groups, you know, giving each polling location its own remedy. So that's something that I've never seen anywhere else in the market. I mean, Cradlepoint really owns that in terms of the ease of use and the flexibility.
Jeff, are you an IT department of one, or is your department pretty small?
Small. Yeah, we're a new department. So Lisa, when she started with these poll books, I believe that's when she started growing her IT department. So we started into this project. So we're very small.
So that's probably a huge advantage for you then to be able to have that like single pane of glass management, just be able to see everything in one spot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, at the very first time it was just me, and now we've grown to more than just me. And if it wasn't for that single pane of glass, I wouldn't be able to manage it. No.
I'm picturing you on like polling days, just running around to hundreds of different places trying to get things set up before the solution was in place. And that makes me curious, what is the setup that takes place beforehand? So before polling day, are you just dropping off routers, and then is it the people working at the polling location that are setting it up, and how are they configuring them?
So they are already pre-configured. We have a survey unit that does an excellent job surveying all of our polling locations. They are the hands and the feet of this, so they decide where things go and what things go where. They're the ones that survey all the locations and determine where our routers are. We have them pre-configured, and then they're delivered with the all the other hardware before the election. During the election morning, they're told to turn them on, and then we see them come up in Cradlepoint's NetCloud. And that's how we know, okay, these people are online, these people are doing their jobs, they're logging in, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So the NetCloud is also great for reporting back where they're at and when they get turned on.
And are those the folks that are going out ahead of time, are they also determining like which SIM would be the primary SIM? Are they doing any kind of like network tests, or are they just?
Yes. We gave them the routers themselves with the poll book, so they do a real world test. They don't just take measurements, but they also take measurements. We got them cellular measurement devices that measure the cellular carriers at each location, and then they report that in on a form, so we know based upon that location what their numbers were, and then we also know not just to do the numbers and say it's good. We want to do the use of the poll book. So they log voters in, not obviously real ones, but they do the testing there at the polling location with the poll books and the hardware, just to make sure that they know it worked there before we had people actually using it on election day.
So I spent a little time in support here at Cradle Point. So I like to ask this question too. You guys have been using this for a little while now. I'm not sure if you've gone, like I mentioned here in Idaho here, we have multiple elections throughout the year, depending on things. I assume that's similar for you guys. How many polling days have you gone through using these devices? And I'm going to ask the kind of negative questions. Have you run into any issues? And if so, how easy or difficult was it to resolve those issues?
Yes, we've had 2 elections. As I said, we have 1,703 precincts that we stand up for in-person election day. And I can honestly say, without a moment's hesitation, we have not had any real issues with the implementation of this new technology. It has been received really fabulously by our poll workers and our voters, and even by our staff. So we had to get our staff people trained up to be able to get this technology out on the street. And we've been fortunate. It's such an intuitive piece of equipment, and people really feel like confidence in using it. And we've been happy so far, extremely happy with its implementation in Philadelphia.
I keep thinking about, I'm old enough to have voted a few times, and I feel like anytime I go vote, you meet those volunteers who have been at the same polling station or volunteering for sometimes decades. And I can just imagine some of these folks who are working the polling stations thinking how revolutionary this probably feels to them. And maybe in some cases for the first time, they feel excited to open the doors and greet people and not have to worry about I'm going to have to deal with some angry people today, or have to keep telling people that they're waiting.
Well, as with anything that's new, the apprehension, the initial, the apprehension about it is oh my gosh, this is going to be a disaster, right? Everybody's so worried. Everybody's all tensed up about it, including me, right? I'm, sitting on pins and needles hoping that, I didn't just make a huge mistake. But for all of us, as I said, for everybody, from the commissioner level down to the staff and the poll workers, the voters, it was just a wonderful experience at every level. We didn't get any negative feedback on it. And, I'm really happy that we were able to roll it out, 2 times. And, I can only imagine it's just going to get better, right? Because the first 2 times were pretty seamless, and thumbs up.
I think that the longer we have it, the more ideas come to our minds about how to do things better. There's a lot of asset tracking that we do currently. We're looking at using the APIs that Cradle Point gives to integrate into our asset tracking, using RFIDs or GPS locations. So the other things that we're thinking of, the longer we have them, that we can implement and integrate into elections is really going to be next level. And I don't think anyone else in the country is doing a lot of things that we're doing.
Trailblazers. We love that. And, I'm thinking too, as you're getting more comfortable with this type of technology, do you see any future innovations or maybe future ways that wireless technology can be used throughout Philadelphia County for other things?
We have, we at what has been said, we implemented this technology with great success. And, the people that work in other departments and govern in other departments see the technology. They're voters too, we hope. So, they've shown some interest in what this technology is that we're using. And it seems like, there are places and instances where they are looking at the opportunity to maybe use this technology, whether it's to move cameras or to detect dumping, short dumping, illegal dumping, whether it's for fleet management. There's a bunch of different things that different departments may be looking at this technology for, but it is because of the successful implementation that it's even something that we would feel comfortable saying to another department if the opportunity arises to say, yeah, absolutely, we would we would recommend this wholeheartedly. We think it's been a great improvement for our department. So I think that there are other. Certainly from my mind's eye, there's plenty of opportunity to use this technology throughout the city. And we'll see, we'll look to the future and see if the city decides to do it. But I know it is, it's something that, it's in the box of things to try.
That's such an exciting horizon to be on. I have the opportunity to write a lot about smart cities, and it's cool to see there's often just these little pockets or a little portion of the city that starts with something, and then all of a sudden you're seeing these little bits of technology implemented all throughout, and the connectivity and the data and just all of the knowledge that you can gain and ways to make processes more efficient and improve the quality of lives for citizens is limitless. It's a really cool opportunity.
I think since Lisa kind of invested in an IT department here in the city commissioner's office, there's a lot more that we could bring to the table in terms of data that really are going to make elections better, the whole experience better, because we're able to do so much more with the data preemptively. You don't necessarily have to wait for a problem. You have the data from the last two elections of the problems, and then you can put resources in place prior to the third election and not have so many problems. So I think now that we have this technology, we can do a lot more with it. And there's more that we don't even know that we can do with it. And I know there is. That's the exciting part.
That is exciting. Lots to come, starting with the humble poll book.
Yes, that's interesting. Yeah.
The first time I saw it probably was in 2015 in another jurisdiction, electronic poll book. And it has taken, this long because we had to get other things in place, but I kind of knew for the first time I saw the electronic poll book that it was going to be a game changer, but I had no idea with this advancement in technology that it would be the game changer that it's turned out to be.
Absolutely, and those advancements come quick. It's like once you get started and they get rolling, they're coming out like crazy.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you would want to share regarding your experience or the benefits of implementing wireless technology in the voting processes?
I just believe that with every, we've been very fortunate, very lucky so far as we introduce technology to our voters. We've had a great positive experience, and that experience leads to a better voting experience. And it leads to people having more confidence in the process, which is really the ultimate goal.
I think that when I first started here, I wasn't as, I guess you can say, cognizant of the voter experience. But Lisa's really inspired me to think more about the voter experience and more about voting in general. So a lot of times I find myself thinking of ways to make it better. So I think that's what keeps me here working as hard as I do, is knowing that there's always something more that I could do and something I've never even thought about before. And that's how to make voting experience better through technology.
And I imagine, you're probably not going to vote somewhere else anytime soon. But if you did, and they weren't using things like this, you'd probably be like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Why are they doing
Why are they doing this? We've done away with this poll book years ago. No, there are other counties, I believe, just in this state that still use paper poll books. So
we won't name them.
We'll catch on.
Well, Jeff and Lisa, are there is there any place that our listeners can go to learn more about the solutions you guys have implemented, or even just more about technology and voting?
You can go to our website at vote.phila.gov. In advance of every election, there's all kinds of information about our department. and ways to access us and information that we put out there for the public. And you can ask the commissioners any questions you want and contact us. We're happy to be a source of information.
Excellent. We appreciate that. Well, thank you guys both so much for joining us and sharing your experience. This has been great.
Thanks for having us.
So, Taylor, does that make you want to get out and go vote now, knowing how Philadelphia is working to improve that experience for their constituents?
It does. You know, one thing that I think I took away from this the most is Jeff at the end saying, you know, he hadn't thought as much about voter experience before, but seeing how a technology like this can improve it so much has really kind of got him thinking more about how can we keep making it better. And I think the big picture of that is the better we make that process, the more people will vote. And no matter what you're voting for, we need more people to vote. So if this can help us get there, let's do it.
Well, it's interesting to me, right, as a product person, right, a person who thinks about new products and the customer experience, how technology is kind of unlocking that thought process in government as well, right? They're not thinking about it as something they have to do. They're thinking about it as a service they deliver. Voting is a service that they deliver to their constituency. It's everybody's right to vote, but you're absolutely right? If it's hard, just like Lisa said, right? If it's hard, if it's a long wait, people are not going to be more inclined to do it. And like you said, right? Your vote is your voice. When it, you know, here in the United States, here in America, your vote is your voice, and that's how we affect change. Whatever you want that change to be, it's how we affect that. And so, you know, if there's a lot of barriers to exercising that right, you're not likely to do it. So the more that municipalities embrace technology and look at it as more of what is that customer experience for voting, and how can we improve that customer experience, whether it's through technology or other means. Like, you know, I love hearing that from them, how they're embracing that mindset of it's about the experience and how can we improve the experience. And then the fact that just the, you know, that getting that one use case is that spark that lights the fire inside the entire city government for how they can transform how they're delivering services to their constituency, whether it's through smart traffic systems or whether it's improving response times or improving police and fire and ambulance services, or just improving the city services in general, paying your city bills or getting whatever building permits you need through the city. So, you know, it seems like the more and more we talk to people like Lisa and Jeff, the more it is just that one, you just need that one spark, that one thing where someone is willing to take that risk and embrace that technology to improve that experience, that just sets off, just people's imaginations on how they can use it.
And I think it's especially impactful because, I mean, Philadelphia is not a small place. And so it's kind of cool to see a giant, in some respects, taking this first step and setting the example. And I think they're a great place for other municipalities to look to and how they're going to advance their own governments. Well, listeners, be sure to subscribe to What's Your Signal for more insight about connecting people, places, and things from anywhere, including polling stations, and to learn more about wireless solutions for pop-up locations like all those places you go to vote. Visit cradlepoint.com to learn more.